up your engine! Now this particular one is a 2017 Ford Escape. Now Ford puts it as part of their SUVs, but really it's a crossover vehicle. So what it comes down to is it's one of the lowest priced American-made crossover vehicles, and here's what you get. Now this particular one is the turbo all-wheel drive. It was a $27,000 vehicle when it was new. And for that, you get a pretty sharp looking crossover vehicle. 4 doors. It's the SE EcoBoost with turbocharger, 4-wheel drive. So this one has dual exhaust, one air, and enough power to tow 2,000 pounds. Value of a car like this today, it's maybe about $16,000. In terms of the Blue Book value, it held its value pretty well. Now, you can watch my videos on the fantasy nature of Blue Book value, but a lot of people go buy them. So, it's not a horrible resale for one main reason. It's a crossover SUV. A lot of people like them. They have a lot of room inside. Now this one is a unique one. We'll open the door because I already made a video about this. My customer turned it into a one-person camper for his daughter. As you can tell by the back, got a reasonable amount of room. You take those seats down, look at that. Oh, that space. Yes, there's a lot of room. When you put the mattress down, right, bed, store stuff in here, there's a little stove under here, a little shelf, even a burglar alarm. And in this case, you can see, they've taken the rear seats out so they have even more room to put stuff. You can bolt them back in if you want. So it's a small crossover, even though Ford calls it an SUV. It's got a lot of space, whether you turn it into a camper or just have it as a regular vehicle. Of course, the big question is, how did it hold up? Well, let's find out. This baby has 80,000 miles on it. And the interior has held up pretty well. We'll start it up. Starts right up. Freezing cold AC, that's still working. Even though the actuators inside are getting creaky, listen to this when you turn it off. Let's just say it has a personality. All the plastic crap in the dash for the AC heating system. They got actuators, electric motors, and doors they open and close. You can hear them creak because that's notorious for Ford. You know, they work, but they make noise. Just like the old Fords, the power steering pumps often would whine, yeah, even when they were full of fluid as they aged. But they work, so it was something you kind of live with a Ford. And what's under the hood? Okay, it's got a 1.6 liter EcoBoost. It's a 4-cylinder engine, turbocharged, GDI, puts out about 178 horsepower. Plenty enough to move this thing along. And even though it needs an oil change, the oil's still full. The owner says it doesn't burn any oil, so the engine's still in good shape. I've seen cars that were 4 times older than this car, 3 times the mileage, that still had the original wheel bearings. But I don't know what it was for. They're no good at making wheel bearings anymore. Some of them had to be changed on it. Not an outrageous expense, but still an annoying thing that they should make better in the first place. Well, that's good news in this. This is a 6-speed automatic transmission with overdrive. Has it had problems? No. It's performed perfectly and it still shifts pretty good. This is not that dual clutch transmission that they put in those Fiestas and the Focuses where Ford had to fix them and now they got to buy the cars back. No, it's not that garbage. It's a pretty reliable 6-speed automatic transmission that they put in all of the Focuses. It doesn't matter which engine you get in it. The 1.6 turbo or the 2.0 liter, it doesn't matter. They all use the same transmission and it is a pretty good automatic transmission. It's a conventional automatic transmission with a torque converter. It isn't that dual clutch garbage that Ford made that had problems with. So you don't have to worry about the transmissions in these generally. And how does it handle? It handles surprisingly well. That's one of the big advantages of this thing, especially since it's a 4-wheel drive vehicle. If you're in the rain, the snow, it actually handles quite well. I'll definitely give it that. Let's take it for a spin. Check it out. Like I said, it starts right up. Turn to the key. Kind of a small backup camera, I'll give it that. It works, but it is rather small. That tiny 1.6 liter 4-cylinder engine, so got a little shake at idle. It's not the smoothest thing when you're idling along. Neither is it the quietest. It makes a reasonable amount of noise, especially when you're accelerating. But on the plus side, it corners quite well. Maybe a little bit rough ride. Generally, these crossovers are a little smoother riding. Okay, now we'll see how it accelerates with all-wheel drive and that little bitty 1.6 that does have a turbo. Here goes nothing. Makes a lot of noise. It does accelerate, but it certainly doesn't throw you back in your seat. But the transmission still shifts like a dream. And if you take it on the highway, it's a reasonable highway ride. A tad bit noisy, but it is the cheapest price one. You got to realize that. And as I said, the ride, you hit bumps. It's a little bit bumpy. You feel it. It's kind of a short wheelbase, and not the greatest suspension in the world. Not the worst, but you know, you kind of get what you pay for in this kind of price range. Now comes the real electronics test, the scan tool, to see what kind of shape it's actually in electronically. Can't lie to the computer. Diagnosis, baby. USA. Ford, here we go. For vehicle, so it reads it automatically, knows exactly what the vehicle is. Okay, so the Escape, EcoBoost 1.6 liter, automatic gasoline, federal emissions. And now we're gonna analyze it and see what's happening. And while we're waiting, the interior's held up pretty well. No cracks, no big rips or anything. With this camper conversion, man, this baby has a lot of room in it. There's no arguing it. All done, let's check. No faults. No faults at all. So 80,000 miles later, there's no electronic faults in it. Can't argue with that. A quick scan of all the data. There's a lot of data in these things. We'll do live data and I'll start analyzing it all. So I'll look at the data. I'm looking for any yellow first, which means there's bad data. Something's a bit off. So far, I don't find any. There'll be a lot of data because this is a late model car. You gotta know a lot to understand what this stuff means, but at least with this color-coded stuff, if you don't see any oranges, no faults, no oranges yet, like I say, there's an awful lot of data. I'm actually gonna go through all of them here, so you can see all the information you can get on a modern car. There is a lot of information we mechanics are able to access just by plugging in one of these machines. Fuel rail pressure, all kinds of stuff. And so far, none of it is bad. We're only at the G's. See, I'm telling you. Maybe I'll fast forward this with speed so you don't have to watch all this. I don't think there's going to be any oranges, but you never know. We're still going. We're only on the eyes now. There's still no oranges. Da, 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 da. Still no oranges. Like I say, there's a tremendous amount of data that you can get with one of these machines. Now we're in the transmission system. They're still all black. None of them are orange. The rattling you hear is the converted camper in the back. You can't blame the car on that one. That's the wood rattling. Like I say, these little four-cylinder engines, they don't idle perfect. You'll always get a little bit of jiggle with them. Gives you the turbocharger information. There, now we got all the information. And there was no oranges. Look at all that. There it goes. More and more information. Whee! Look at it all. So really, what do I have to say about this little crossover SUV? Hey, not a great car, but not a bad car either. Will it go 300,000 or 400,000 miles like a Toyota RAV4 or a Honda CR-V? No, probably not. But on the plus side, it's a fun car to drive. And if you go used like my customer did, you're going to pay a lot less than you are for a RAV4 or a Honda CR-V. They just hold their resale values too much. So you want to go on a cheap to a small crossover SUV? Hey, getting a good used Escape might not be a bad idea. And here's some bonus questions and answers. Now here's an odd one. If you want a flawless classic Mercedes-Benz station wagon or one of their G-Wagons, Geladenwagens, there's a Japanese company that now creates them that you can buy. The name of the company is called Aero, and it's in Kawasaki, Japan. At a starting price of about $31,000, it'll build you a 1980s Mercedes station wagon or one of their Geladenwagens, and that even includes the car. You don't have to buy the car and then they add that on. That includes the car. Now, if you want a tear-down restoration, that can cost you $53,000. But still, you get something like that, solid built, tear down restoration. Not really a bad deal. And consider you get a reconditioned car for 53 grand, top of the line. And a lot of people pay 53 grand just for the custom stuff of a car that they're buying. You get the car with this. And in those days, in the 80s, yes, they built them like tanks. They were solid built vehicles. Now they're all cars. They're before people had airbags. But they were simple cars, and they were well-built cars. It's not uncommon of these overbuilt Mercedes from the 80s to go over 500,000 miles. I've had customers do that. It was back in the 80s, 90s, though. So it's kind of like a time capsule. And since the Japanese are the ones that are doing them over, I'm sure they'll do a very good job. After all, a lot of the original Japanese car stuff was just copied from the Germans. They flat out copied half of the stuff that they made. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.